Hi, everyone, and thanks for checking out this movie review as part of my 31 Horror Movies in October series. So, we are on to day two already, believe it or not, number two. And so, the movie that I watched on day two and that I'm going to go ahead and review is a pretty classic movie, I think, Salem's Lot from 1979. So, yeah, this was actually, I have it on Blu ray here, as you can see, The Ultimate in Terror, it says. So this was actually the first time I probably saw it on TV years ago because it is actually a made-for-TV miniseries. And I'm sure when I was growing up, I wouldn't have remembered it in '79 when they brought it out because I would have only been like 8 months old or something. But I'm sure it was on TV at some point in the '80s or '90s. So, but I haven't seen it in at least 25 years or so. I'm sure. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and review Salem's Lot. So let's just kind of get into it. I'll go through the setup and the premise, and then we'll get into my thoughts and review, which I'm going to try not to. I'm going to try to keep the spoilers out on all of these videos as part of my 31 horror movies in October series. So Salem's Lot is a 1979 American miniseries television adaptation of the 1975 horror novel of the same name by Stephen King. The movie's directed by Toby Hooper and stars David Soul and James Mason. The plot concerns a writer who returns to his hometown and discovers that its citizens are turning into vampires. A pretty interesting premise. Salem's Lot combines elements of the vampire film and haunted house subgenres of horror. So basically, the film opens at a church in Guatemala. A man and a boy, Ben Mears and Mark Petrie, are filling small bottles with holy water when one of the bottles begins to emit an eerie supernatural glow. Mears tells Mark that they've found us again, knowing an evil presence is nearby. They decide to stay and fight it. So then we cut to 2 years earlier, where Mears, a successful author, returns from a long absence of his to his small hometown of Salem's Lot, Maine. Mears intends to write a book about the Marston House, an old ominous property on a hilltop which has a reputation for being haunted. Attempting to rent it, Mears finds that it's already been purchased by another new arrival in town, the mysterious Richard Straker, who who is now in the process of opening an antique shop with his oft-mentioned but never-present business partner Kurt Barlow. Instead, Mears moves into a boarding house in town run by Eva Miller and develops a romantic relationship with a local woman, Susan Norton. He befriends Susan's father, Dr. Bill Norton, and reconnects with his kindly former school teacher, Jason Burke. Mears tells Burke that he feels the Marston house is somehow inherently evil, recalling that its original owner, Marston, implied to have been a child molester, committed suicide there. Mears further recalls a traumatic childhood incident in which he broke into the house on a dare and saw Hubie's ghost. After a large crate is delivered to the Marston house one night, townspeople begin to disappear or die under strange circumstances. Mears and Straker are the main suspects as they are both new in town, but it eventually becomes clear that the crate contains Straker's business partner Kurt Barlow, an ancient vampire who has come to Salem's Lot after sending Straker to make way for his arrival. Straker kidnaps a young boy, Ralphie Glick, as an offering to Barlow, while Barlow himself kills local realtor Larry Crockett. The Glick boy then returns as a vampire to claim his brother, Danny. After his funeral, the undead Danny infects a gravedigger, Mike Ryerson, and attempts to prey on one of his school friends, Mark Petrie. However, Mark is a horror film buff and manages to repel Danny with a cross. So it's kind of a long setup and premise because it's kind of a long movie, honestly. As far as cast goes, we have the great David Soul as Ben Mears, the great James Mason as Richard Straker, Lance Kerwin as Mark Petrie, Bonnie Bedelia as Susan Norton, Ayres as Jason Burke, Ed Flanders as Bill Norton, and Reggie Nalder as Kurt Barlow. Nadler? No, it's not Nadler, it's Nalder. So anyway, so yeah, that's Salem's Lot, miniseries from 1979. So this was obviously made for as a TV miniseries. So altogether, it's about 3.5 hours. It's 3.5 hours long. So it's a watch where you got to have an afternoon or an evening to see it, but it's definitely worth it, in my opinion. So let's just kind of get into it. So starting with the pros. You got to start with the characters, from Ben Mears to Mark Petrie to Richard Straker, especially those three, but really all of them are compelling characters. They feel like real people in this town. It's not. I mean, if you weren't watching this as a movie and you just saw like this film or something on this town, I mean, that's how good they are. That's how well written they are. They just feel like real people that you'd actually meet in this town. They feel like really real characters that we get to know, well acted and written, well written across the board. So that's the biggest thing. I mean, this movie has a very creepy and effective look of Kurt Barlow, who's the head vampire. They definitely took from Nosferatu from 1922 with the look of him. Actually, I think yeah, you can see him. Kind of hard with my lighting. You can kind of see, excuse me, on the back there. He just kind of got that Nosferatu look to him. It's a very interesting and somewhat simple story. I mean, this the guy who grew up in this town, who's an author, is writing books, goes back, and strange things start to happen, and it's a really an unfolding mystery. And that's why, even though it's 3.5 hours or so long, I really like mysteries and movies that have a story that actually unfold in front of us. It's kind of, I guess you could say it's kind of a slow burn horror movie if you'd like. I haven't read the book yet. I want to do that, but my understanding is the book is a little bit like that as well. But I really don't mind that, especially when you get good payoff and good characters and a good interesting story that unfolds. And this movie definitely has that. It's a very effective setting with the small town atmosphere where everyone kind of knows each other. It's not New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, anything like that. It's a very small town. I'm not sure what the population is, but it's probably under a couple thousand people. Um, there's very good atmosphere, especially within the house that Straker resides in, Marston House, which, as it mentions, this is kind of a vampire and a haunted house movie, which is like one of the best things you could come up with because they're my two favorite genres. I'm a big fan of vampires going all the way back to Dracula and even Nosferatu. And then I love the haunted house kind of stories and movies. So to me, this was a no-brainer to watch as part of my 31 horror movies in October. But yeah, very good atmosphere. Love the house, the creepiness of it, the haunted mansion feel. Very effective makeup with the look of the vampires. I think they do a really good job with the makeup, the practical effects. The cinematography is really great. Great visuals, especially with the fog that comes around when the vampires are flying in front of the windows. Just great and very well directed movie as well by Toby Hooper. Obviously adapting from a great story by Stephen King. So yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. It didn't feel like 3.5 hours to me. It was one of those that I put on. And when I was done, it's like, oh wow, that was almost 4 hours ago because I had to stop it once and come back to it. So it was a little bit longer than the normal runtime. But it was one of those movies, like I said, because the characters were good and compelling, the story was unfolding, the really good mystery that really took you into it, and so you weren't checking your watch. It didn't feel like it was. I mean, basically, no fat needed to be trimmed on this. I mean, it was everything. Everything in this movie needed to be in this movie. It was all part of the story. It was really important. I do have a couple of cons with it. There's obviously this is rated PG. It was made for television, so I mean, if you're looking for kills and gore on film, this isn't going to be your movie, man. There's a lot of cutaway kills for the most part in this movie, and there really isn't any gore shown on screen. Again, it's a movie that's rated PG, and it was made for television back in 1979. So you're not it's not even PG-13. I mean, nowadays if they made this, it probably would be. But so yeah, that's one thing for the gore hounds out there. As I said, the movie is long, which might turn some people off. It's one of those slow burn movies, but like I said, they do it really well, and I think it's well worth the payoff. Um, but the first act does take a while of being introduced to all these characters and sort of setting up the movie and trying to get you to say, okay, this is where we're at. And I did really enjoy the 2 year or the beginning when they're in the Guatemalan church, and then it goes 2 years earlier because it's kind of like, ooh, that's intriguing. What are they up to with the glowing blue water and stuff, or holy water? And so then it says 2 years earlier, that that's the story kind of, they're going to take you back and show you how we got to that point. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Um, But yeah, it does take a little bit the first act to get to know all the characters and the setup for the movie before you really get any scares or even seeing any vampires. But again, I'm old school. I don't mind it. That's to me, that's how good vampire slash horror movies were made. You know, you don't just right away just have a vampire on screen killing somebody. You gotta get there, in my opinion. So um some of there's a few practical effects that are outdated because again, this movie's almost as old as I am, 42 years old, 41 years old, 42. So obviously they're just not going to hold up that well. And it was a TV production, so budget wise it probably couldn't spend the money that they would in a theatrical release for practical effects with a higher budget. So those don't hold up great, but those are some nitpicky cons. I mean, really, I could watch this anytime. It's a really great Halloween movie that I would recommend. Again, you got to have at least 3.5 hours. So if you're going to start this at night, either stay up into the wee hours of the morning or start it by 8 o'clock, and you'll be done before midnight. But it's just a really good, really effective vampire movie with a great adapted, made for TV movie from the Stephen King novel, which I can't wait to read. Um, I'm currently reading The Shining and Misery right now by him, but this one's going to be next on the list. So yeah, that's Salem's Lot. I'm going to give this movie an 8.5 out of 10 on my rating for my movie review here. Just a very effective movie. I really enjoyed it. If you like vampire movies, you like creepy atmosphere with like the haunted house kind of setting or a small town setting, you're not overly, you don't have to have gore and kills on camera. You'll really enjoy this movie. It's kind of a lost classic in my opinion. I mean, I shouldn't say lost. People know about it, but it doesn't get talked about a lot, and I'm sure it's because of that the PG rating. But that's how it was back then. People forget there was no PG-13. It was PG or R. That's what they had back before 1985, 84, whenever Temple of Doom came out. But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. 8.5 out of 10. Go ahead and comment down below, guys. Tell me what you think of Salem's Lot, the mini series, made for television mini series movie. Pros and cons for you. Like this video, hit the little notification bell to see when my next videos are going to drop. Subscribe to my channel to make sure you see all of my 31 horror movies of October, as well as what I have coming up for movie reviews after that. So yeah, that's it. So thank you for watching day 2 of my 31 horror movies of October. Stay tuned. We will see you tomorrow for day 3. Stay tuned for my next movie and stay scared. Bye.